Real Me. Buffy's little sister writes in her diary for literally an entire episode.
We open with what I thought was an ad for a muscle relaxer or some sort of holistic healing spa, but it turns out it's Buffy and Giles recreating that scene from The Empire Strikes Back, where Luke is training with Yoda, including when he falls once the rocks are toppled.
It turns out it's her little sister, who is played by Harriet the Spy, who is known for appearing in the film version of Inspector Gadget, co-starring Nick Tatopoulos.
We cut to Dawn doing the most 90s thing ever, which is writing in her diary with a voiceover about how nobody understands her and thinks Buffy is such a big deal just because she's the Slayer. The show shows us how Buffy and Dawn are clearly siblings and do sibling things like take each other's cereal bowl and use the last of the milk.
And I thought it was interesting that Dawn knows that Buffy is the Slayer, and we don't get a scene of them explaining that to her or anything. Riley comes over and says some weird things in front of Dawn.
I'm here to violate your firstborn. Never goes over with parents. Not sure why.
And Dawn is offended when he calls her a kid.
Buffy and Riley make out for a while, and then he leaves, which makes the whole scene pointless.
Giles drives Buffy and gets annoyed when Dawn messes with the radio.
Because it's his new car.
And he's upset that his midlife crisis isn't going as great as he'd hoped.
They're going shopping for Slayer supplies, and they run into Willow and Tara, whom Dawn thinks are totes rad, or whatever slang she used, while writing in her diary.
Willow is impressed that Buffy has a plan for training every day, which was admittedly very surprising. But then Willow is upset that Buffy has to drop the drama class they were taking, and she immediately tells Buffy she can just blow off training on those days, because why not? And I wondered why Willow was taking a drama class. I thought that performing in front of people was her greatest fear.
It's called character growth.
If that's what passes for character growth in this show, then I don't know.
I mean, we just saw Giles grow in the fact that he now drives an automatic car. He was very distraught, but then he made it work.
All right, I submit to the wisdom of the writers.
Everyone is distracted when they get to the magic shop because it is all torn up, and the owner is also all torn up.
Buffy makes Dawn wait outside, which upsets her. The theme of this episode is people getting upset, which is the theme of every episode.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the theme of the show. Dawn is accosted by some weird drunk dude telling her she doesn't belong there and that he is a cat. But then we get a commercial, so we don't see how that scene ends, but I can't imagine it was good based on how it was going.
Yeah, I assumed that he possessed her or something, and then his body dissolved. That's usually what happens in this show.
Or maybe he turned into a cat.
Tara goes outside and finds Dawn sitting by herself, and she refers to the two of them as not being part of the gang and says they should stay out of the way while the others investigate.
Inside the magic shop, they determine the owner was attacked by vampires, so Buffy goes to look for vampires, while Giles surveys the magic shop, commenting on how nice everything is, except for the dead guy on the floor, which they just keep stepping over.
And when Willow looks at the inventory list, she finds that books are missing, including one about the Slayer, and that someone stole a worthless unicorn statue.
And they ponder who would raid the shop but be interested in such dumb shit when we cut to Harmony.
She praises her minions for stealing everything that they stole, and there are some jokes about how dumb they all are, which makes sense, I guess, if they're following Harmony. They impatiently ask when they're going to carry out their big plan, and Harmony says, "We killed the Slayer tonight."
Which I had no doubt would be filled with humorous, bumbling moments. Back at the house, Joyce is irritated that Buffy didn't take Dawn shopping for school supplies, but Buffy counters with the fact that someone was murdered. And I never thought I would say this, but in this case, I agreed with Buffy. Joyce was being an idiot.
Joyce is annoyed because someone needs to look after Dawn while she goes to some art gallery thing, but Buffy is annoyed because she wants to go on patrol with Riley. And neither of them treats Buffy's life or death responsibility with the weight that they should.
Even though the show told us that was what was going to happen last episode.
Dawn insists that she doesn't need anyone to watch after her, but when Buffy says she'll get Xander, Dawn happily agrees.
Because she thinks Xander is majorly fat, and that's with a PH.
She talks about how much she likes him, but then she's disappointed to see that Anya comes along.
Who is apparently straight up whack. People really talked using these words at one point in time.
Yeah, not people that I talked to, so.
And I'm not going to pretend like it was just then, because, I hear kids saying really dumb shit today, too.
Yeah, I hear adults saying really dumb shit today. Tara talks to Willow about how hard it must be for Dawn not being able to help with the slaying. Willow says she's too young, but Tara clarifies that it's the outsider feeling. Willow reassures her that she fits in. Tara doesn't seem convinced, but says that they should try to make Dawn fit in.
Meanwhile, Buffy and Riley are on patrol, and he points out that she's on Dawn's case a lot. She says it seems like Dawn is always around, getting in the way, and just gets to be a normal kid, and she wants that too. So I guess we're back to season 1 already. Great.
Maybe the real theme of this episode is people complaining. Riley points out that Buffy's logic is illogical.
Did I mention this is a rant? Sense really has no place in it.
I'm getting that.
But for some reason, he doesn't break up with her. Riley says that Dawn idolizes her, but Buffy is jealous that people don't give Dawn responsibilities and just look out for her instead.
While at the same time, Dawn is lamenting that Buffy gets to do cool stuff and whatever.
Kill people and get away with it.
And she murdered that guy.
Yeah, and go ice skating right after and making out with a vampire. I guess that's the thing that girls like.
I mean, Twilight made $10 bajillion.
Yeah. After some jokes about Anya not understanding the game of life, a rock flies through the window with a humorous note from Harmony.
Yeah, I like that smiley face. When Xander goes to the door and informs Harmony that Buffy's not home, they trade barbs, which was humorous because they're both idiots.
And Dawn gets mad when Harmony insults Xander and challenges her to come in without thinking about it, showing that she really does fit in with the gang.
They eventually shove Harmony out the door, and Harmony runs away, even though she could just jump through the window she just broke. But she's dumb.
And when they tell Buffy and Riley about it, they find the idea of Harmony having minions really funny.
And Harmony is a vampire, so she's got super strength and crap. She could just overpower them all, which she was doing.
I was glad that when Anya mentioned that Harmony was invited in, Buffy actually started taking it seriously. I was legitimately surprised. And she realizes that only someone who lives there could have invited her in, so she goes to yell at Dawn, despite the others trying to get her to take it easy.
And didn't they establish in some other episode that there's a spell they can perform to uninvite vampires?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a spell they can perform to kind of proactively prevent vampires from being invited in, but maybe there's not, I don't know.
How would that work?
I don't know, some kind of vampire barrier that even being invited isn't enough to break through it. I don't know.
I mean, they could just not do it. That seems like the best solution.
Yeah. But, just in case, because, Joyce literally just invited Dracula over 1 episode ago, which they even bring up.
Yeah, and Buffy said she was lonely.
Yeah, so it was okay. Again, Twilight.
I mean, I would mess with them. I'd be like, you cannot not come in.
And then they would kill you. So wait, if they can't not come in, then does that mean they have to come in?
Harmony and gang run into Spike, who pretty much tells her how lame she is and laughs at her gang.
And when she tells him she's planning on killing the Slayer, he's very skeptical of her chances. He asks if she's planning on kidnapping one of Buffy's friends to lure her into a trap, and she says no, but won't tell him her actual plan. And after he leaves, she turns to her minions and says,
Guys, new plan.
Back at the house, Xander surprisingly brings up the uninvitation spell, but Buffy immediately changes the subject because it makes too much sense, and rants about how nobody expects anything from Dawn, and they're all turning her into a little idiot that will get them all killed.
Her words.
And I was just blown away, physically, by how much projecting she was doing in this episode.
Dawn overhears what she's saying and gets upset and runs outside, fighting Anya's attempts to stop her. And one of Harmony's minions shows up and knocks Anya down, and they take Dawn.
Once they get back to their lair, Harmony's followers question the stupidity of Harmony's plan and wonder why they can't just kill Dawn, because they point out Buffy only has to think that they have Dawn, so it doesn't really matter if she's safe or not.
Buffy busts into Spike's crypt and pummels him for answers about Harmony's whereabouts.
While Harmony is lamenting to Dawn that things are really hard for her, being the leader, and she sounded like every incompetent manager that has ever existed in every company.
She says the gang doesn't treat her with respect and doesn't understand the pressure she's under, and when she asks Dawn if she knows what that's like, Dawn says, a little.
So I thought at this point they would develop some kind of friendship, or at least understanding.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be an entire scene, but then Harmony's goons immediately come in to mutiny. They grab Harmony, and Dawn tells the others that if they touch her, Buffy will kill them. And when one of them touches her, Buffy immediately kills him. It was very predictable.
And they even call out that it was a joke in case you weren't sure it was a joke. Buffy starts fighting everybody, and during the commotion, Harmony runs away.
And she ends up staking the last vampire with a unicorn horn. But it looked like the unicorn was made of plastic. Does that mean that Buffy could just grab any sharp object to stake a vampire with? I thought it had to be wood.
Maybe the horn was wood.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll have to write a letter and ask them.
I'll ask Joss Whedon to come out of hiding to answer the question. Buffy chastises Dawn for her behavior, and Dawn fires back by saying she's going to tell Joyce that Buffy slayed in front of her.
But once they get home, Buffy chooses to not tell Joyce about the events of the evening, which Dawn is happy about, but doesn't tell Buffy that she's happy about it.
Typical sibling behavior.
I'll tell you what, if one of my siblings used the last of the milk, I would stake them through the heart.
You don't even... I thought you didn't drink milk.
What? I don't even know how to respond to that.
In the magic shop, Dawn writes in her diary about how everything worked out okay.
And we find out that Giles has purchased the magic shop. How? He doesn't have a job. Does he have money just lying around somewhere?
Yeah, I wondered about that, but it does seem like he's got money. He's got a nice house, and even though he refers to it as his flat, maybe that's just because he's British, he's got all these weapons, he's got all these old tomes and everything. He's got to have money to get all this stuff.
Yeah, we need a kind of backstory on Giles.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of the show, I was like, well, the Watchers Council probably provides him with stuff. But that doesn't seem to be the case.
And when they go to check out the back room, Buffy keeps poking back in to tell Dawn not to mess with anything. And Dawn ominously writes that Buffy just thinks she's her dumb little sister.
Boy, is she in for a surprise.
But without the ominous music, it would just seem like some dumb girl writing in her diary. So, I don't know. Thought it was kind of funny. Real me. Overall.
See, you should have just used that as the episode synopsis. Some dumb girl writes in her diary.
I mean, that's pretty much what I said. She writes in her diary for a whole episode.
Yeah. The whole diary thing was extremely 90s, but it at least set up the character of Dawn pretty well. I'm hoping she actually has more development than I get in the way a lot, but I want more responsibility. Because she did just mysteriously appear, and all the other characters act like she's been there forever. And her little line at the end, when she said Buffy was going to be really surprised, was that in reference to the drunk cat guy from earlier? Did he let her know something about her origins in a part we didn't see? Or is she already aware that she just appeared out of nowhere? Or is she just being dumb? Don't put in that last one. Having Harmony come back was a good decision for an episode like this, because it's not something to be taken seriously, and the focus is supposed to be on learning about Dawn. And if they had a serious world-ending threat going on at the same time, it would have detracted from Dawn's arc. So I think the writers might have been thinking for once, maybe by accident.
I didn't put that in my notes, but I had the same thought.
Uh-huh. You can put that in, too.
Every once in a while you say something that makes sense, I'll admit it.
I also wonder if they're going to develop Buffy's projecting on Dawn more. It would be an interesting arc to have Buffy, who has historically been an idiot, keep projecting all of her flaws and insecurities on Dawn and act like she's always been super focused on her job and not a childish dumbass. I'm also glad Giles now has something to do, but I'm hoping it's something more than what he's already done, because now instead of the guy who does all the research and helps them and provides the meeting place in the library or his house, it's now going to be at the magic shop. Because it's a magic shop, it would be cool if he also used it to buff up his magic skills. Harmony and Dawn's little interaction, which was very short, I thought had potential. Like if Harmony shows up again, she and Dawn could become kind of friends because they share the outsider mentality. And then, Buffy could get upset because Harmony's an idiot and a vampire. I think that would be interesting, but they probably won't do that. All in all, this was not a bad episode, but I hope we are not going to follow the trend we've seen in the past, where something that is 100% worth investigating that was showcased at the beginning of the season will be completely ignored until the season only has a few episodes left, which in this case is the whole first Slayer thing. It was engaged for this one, though, so I gave it a B-.
I also gave it a B-. This episode didn't really do anything other than introduce Dawn into the series and put Giles in charge of the magic shop. Dawn writing in her diary about all the characters reminded me of Data's Day from TNG. You get kind of a new perspective on all the characters that are already there, and putting it at the beginning of the season is smart because it serves to kind of introduce everybody to new viewers. So again, I think the writers are being a little smarter than usual here. Dawn, I thought, felt like an authentic teenage girl, much more than Buffy ever did. but that doesn't mean she's a compelling character, at least so far. The bickering and arguing between the two could have been really annoying, but the fact that it felt more real and not contrived like most of the things Buffy complains about in this show made me not mind it. It felt like actual drama for the most part, instead of Buffy either making things up to complain about or just causing her own problems. I thought Harmony's part in things was funny, but I'm glad they also treated her as an actual threat when it came down to it instead of just making it a complete joke, and I really liked her note. Tara almost had a subplot, but it was hard to tell if it was supposed to be resolved immediately in that one scene or if it's going to come up again later, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I anticipate her and Dawn bonding more.
Yeah, and I wonder if that would tie into Restless, where Tara was kind of giving Buffy all that information about stuff that was coming or whatever. And then of course there was the weird guy talking to Dawn. I assume that was set up for something later. I did appreciate the references to Dracula here, instead of just ignoring that the previous episode even happened. We didn't really talk about that, but they mentioned it a few times. I didn't think this was an especially noteworthy episode, and it really felt like more of a proper start to the season than the Dracula episode, but it didn't really do anything else. So here's hoping that things pick up a bit more with the next one.